Hey, welcome to Dev Better, the show where we discuss engineering and organizational problems that we have encountered during our travels as a growing software development consulting firm. Today, we're going to talk about recruiting software engineers. And I have with me Phil Muldoon of Hirewell. Phil, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, Jeremy. My name is Phil Muldoon. I'm the vice president at Hirewell in our technology practice. I've been doing this for about 12 years or so, and hiring is fun, right?
It is. Phil and I know each other from previous pasts, and it's been fun kind of watching our businesses grow together because the two of us have worked together pretty tightly to grow 7Factor to where we are, which is why he's here to talk to us today about hiring and some of the anti-patterns that we see and how our process attempts to speak to some of those anti-patterns. So really quickly, in typical Dev Better fashion, let me explain the problem, and then we'll get into some questions and just have some fun dialogue on hiring engineers. So hiring developers is probably one of the toughest things that a company can do well. I speak from experience since over 90% of my company are software engineers. I've been in the industry for 15-ish years as an individual contributor and around 7 years as a hiring manager. And I've learned that hiring really does reduce itself to a bit of a coin flip in a vacuum. There's so many things to consider in order to hire the right individual, the needs of the team they're joining, their background and experience, their long-term goals, how they fit your organization, and so on and so forth. So how do we find the right human? In my industry, I think the answer is that we really don't, at least not immediately. Many times we treat hiring as sort of black and white, where a person doesn't match our preconceived notions of what an ideal candidate is. We automatically reject them. This can be both on conscious and unconscious levels. And our process at 7Factor is designed to figure out at what level this candidate is in alignment with our brand image and move them as quickly as possible through a really simple process that allows us to directionally understand if that person is a fit. Note that I said I don't know for sure. So it's a directional fit, right? And then if we're like 70% or greater, 70% sure or greater that this person has what it takes to work in our industry and in our company, we're going to give them an offer. And most times we're right, and sometimes we're wrong. When that happens, difficult conversations have to be had, but in most cases, folks can be coached towards our standards with the right management philosophies. It's more important to find humans that are teachable and driven than those that have the correct resume with the appropriate educational background of X years and Y framework, or they went to your favorite school or things of that nature. Granted, you got to temper this based on the role that you're looking for and your organization, but we've had excellent success hiring, retaining, and growing incredibly intelligent software engineers over the past 5 years. So let's talk about some anti-patterns and just some random topics on recruiting and kind of get Phil's take on this. Number one, what are some anti-patterns that we've encountered during the typical recruiting process, and what usually grinds our candidates' gears?
Sure. I mean, I think one of the biggest things is wasting candidates' time, right? If they don't feel like something is moving forward or not moving forward appropriately, or quite frankly, there's too many steps, that can really turn off the right candidate, right?
Right.
That would be kind of the first point I would say. I think setting inappropriate expectations. Maybe you get too deep in a process and you understand, hey, we can't pay someone what they're looking for. That could have been ferreted out earlier in a conversation. I think repetitive steps, will drive someone away. And then the all-encompassing lack of feedback.
Yeah, let's go ghosting your candidates, right?
Right.
I mean, companies get mad when candidates ghost them, and you should respond to candidates and give them some form of feedback, even if it is, hey, you're not a fit for now. That's something I know y'all have done a really good job with us, is anytime we have a candidate who goes through our process and we get to the end and say we hired somebody else that came in, we always communicate back to the person, hey, we really liked you, but sorry, here are the reasons why we can't move forward with employing you. Something that I think also sort of frustrates candidates is bad job descriptions.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've read like has to work in a fast-paced environment, which really means don't ever try to work there because they're going to basically hold your nose to the grindstone. At Seven Factor, we worked really hard to build job descriptions that are more human. I purposefully looked at the industry and said, that's dumb. I'm not going to do that anymore. And I rewrote my job descriptions to bake in expectations at the very beginning that the company has for those people. And that's been really successful for us. What are some other things that you guys have seen that have kind of pushed candidates away?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head with the job description, right? Too many times we see that job descriptions come from HR departments that don't know the roles and responsibilities. So they put together a shopping list, but it's not necessarily some of the traits of a person that they want in the position. Some other things that kind of, I guess, push people away is not making interviews collaborative.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Just coming in, putting someone under a white hot light and grilling them, right? Is that an organization that you want to join if they're going to come in and grill you? Or syntax questions really get tough to kind of get the right candidate out of, right? Do you want someone that memorized how to spell a word or someone that understands spelling?
That's a great point. And I want to tell a quick story of when I interviewed for Google. And I'm not saying Google's a horrible company. I'm sure there are lots of incredibly smart people that work there, and I'm not smart enough to work there, obviously, based on my process. I went in and I had like 6 rounds of interviews, and it was literally 6 hours of my day. And I'm very thankful that they flew me out. They put me in an awesome hotel. It was a fantastic trip to the Bay Area and in Mountain View. But the challenge was that I got through. One of my interviewers sort of sat me down and we were going through a problem together, and I was whiteboarding code, which I absolutely hate whiteboarding code. And I was writing stuff down, and she stopped me and said, "Hey, sir, you do realize that we put semicolons at the end of our statements in Java?" I looked at her and I said, "Okay, this interview is over." And I sat down. At that point, I'm like, "No, I'm not going. I'm not, I can't work here. If you're going to yell at me for something that an IDE is going to fix for me, I am not going to work here." And there are other stories you see on the internet of people had like similar experiences. I think it really depends on the interviewer, and not every company, especially one as big as Google, can put the right folks to interview people. I would argue that person shouldn't be interviewing people if they're focusing on that kind of thing. But that was the experience that helped me sort of craft our interviewing process to be a lot more collaborative and focusing more on what problems are you solving, as opposed to, can you, like you said, memorize all of the syntax of esoteric language X,
Right. And I think I know this is going to take the conversation a little bit off topic, but hiring is very difficult in the sense that it's hard to collect data on whether you're doing it successfully or not. There's the false positive, right? You hired the person and they weren't a fit for your organization. There's also the false negative. You didn't hire someone and they probably were going to be a fit. And that one is much harder to capture, right?
Yeah.
Our interviews different from hiring manager to hiring manager to hiring manager. And so one person might accept someone that another person didn't. And it's very hard to capture a lot of that data and improve upon the process, because, like I said, false negatives are really hard to capture.
And that's why it's so critically important to give candidates a good experience when they come through your hiring pipeline. Because if you and the false negative is the one that I am the most paranoid about, because I want the best people I can find and I want them to be in alignment with my company's culture. So if I turn someone down and they were an amazing fit for my company because for whatever reason, my process was unable to figure that out, and there's no such thing as a perfect recruiting process. I want that person to have the most amazing experience during my interview, so that if they were to come back to me and we were to change our minds, I wouldn't have lost that person forever. So next question, and this is one of the more difficult ones, and something that we focused on a lot, is how do we judge culture fit to the companies we're recruiting for, and how do we assess that further down the candidate pipeline? The reason I'm asking you this question is you do a lot of culture fit screening, which is something that many standard staffing firms do a really bad job of doing. What they'll do is they'll open up the rec that's handed to them from the client, the customer, and they'll say X years job experience, Y years this experience, Z years that experience. They'll open up LinkedIn and they'll just kind of look and be like, all right, that matches. Here's a candidate. And you and I both know that doesn't work.
Right. Yeah, no, culture fit is tough, right? It is not, paint with one color brush. It should be assessed throughout all parts of the interview process, but I think most early, right? If you are filling your interview pipelines up with people that aren't cultural fits, your technical leaders are going to get frustrated because they're spending their time with folks that aren't cultural fits, right? And
right.
I think the biggest value that we can have as an organization, being a talent acquisition partner, is by putting people in front of your team that maximizes their time, and they don't spend time interviewing folks that aren't a cultural fit. Right. That being said, inconsistencies need to be addressed throughout the interview process, right? Whether someone is not on time or unreliable, or they cancel an interview at the last minute, are those cultural things that we want to bring into our organization? And I think candidates really respond well to if expectations are set throughout the process, because then they're going to give you their expectations as well. And I think one of the things that I always like to do, and this is me personally hiring for my team, is before I bring anyone on to my team, I like to have an expectations conversation. Mm-hmm. And what does that look like? It is, I'm going to sit down with them and I'm going to clearly explain to them what my expectations are going to be for them in the job if they choose to accept it. On the flip side of that, I want them to have expectations of me as their leader, what they can expect from me. I mean, the biggest thing that they're going to expect from me is that they get a paycheck every 2 weeks, right? That's how we create the most value, but also what their expectations are in career growth, what their expectations are in management style, what their expectations, can be from the organization, right? And I think if you go into any hiring process, you have clear expectations, whether it be for the interview process or, hey, you're getting ready to accept an offer, that's always going to create a much better experience for both sides.
Yeah, for sure. And to hone in on culture fit for a minute, I think that's one of the things we get wrong a lot. Like, what is the definition of a culture fit? And it's not necessarily that, folks are in direct alignment with your company's 5 core missions or anything like that. To me, what culture fit means is that you have attempted to build a company, and the goal of that company is to solve some problem, right? For us, it's to build quality software and to provide the best talent that we can find to work on interesting problems that our clients bring to us, right? As a consulting firm. So that means what I'm looking for might not be the same thing as what you're looking for from a culture perspective. I need folks that are presentable, that can have a conversation with clients, that understand emotional intelligence. And by the way, they don't necessarily have to come equipped with all of this. So there's also the necessity of being able to see the potential of someone, as opposed to where you're at right now is X and your resume says Y. Focusing on the resume is one of the biggest mistakes I think people make. I don't read them. by the way. I've never read a resume that Phil sent me. He probably pissed at me for that.
I stopped sending them to you.
Yeah, he just stopped sending me resumes. Our process is we do use those resumes as a general barometer on whether or not we want to work with someone, right? And it's more of, can they write a sentence that makes sense? Is it well organized? Is it up to date? Like, we're not looking for the content of the resume. I don't care what school someone went to. I care about their ability to walk in, understand a client's problem, have emotional intelligence and empathy, and to elevate the team around them, right? So that culture fit, you'll never find through reading a resume. The resume is a very light, like 10% of what that candidate is able to do is reflected through the resume. And then from there, we all do collaborative interviews, and we spend time with these people and we work with them in the trenches on problems to help us figure out if they are a good fit for us, which means you're curious, you're empathetic, you raise your hand when you see something strange. Like, these are things that aren't part of a normal interview process, that I would argue our entire interview process is designed only to check for culture fit, because I can teach somebody the syntax of Java, right? If you come to me and you're faking being a programmer, we're going to know like that, and you're out the door. That's just not going to fly here. But in general, focusing more on culture fit and those attributes that you want to see in a long-term employee at your company is 100 times more valuable. Now, there's a challenge here. Growing people is a lot of work, and your teams have to be in alignment with that, because if you bring in someone who's maybe 20% where you want them to be, guess who gets to get them the remaining 80%? You do. So you have to understand how much work a given individual is and make that sort of deterministic trade-off of, this person is 50% work to get where I want them to go. This person is 80% work to get them what I want to go. But that 80% is greater than this 50%. So you know what? Let's take the chance on the person with less experience and grow them into the position that we want them to be in. These are all very difficult things to assess during a candidate's pipeline, like the life cycle of them in the pipeline, which is why I say it's kind of a coin flip. You do the best you can. You say that I'm pretty sure this person is a good fit for us, and have the appropriate contingency plans in place in the event that they're not, because that's always a bit of a shock when you have to let somebody go, right?
And I think one final thing that I'm going to bring up is, you talk about resumes, right? Resumes are really a story of where you've been, not where you're going, right? And what your aspirations are. And so, my team always wants to talk about where someone's been, but it's more important for us to talk about, where are you going? What do you want to do in your career? And does the direction you're taking your career line up with our client in the direction that they're taking their company? In this case, does it line up with 7-factor, or maybe you're a better fit at a different organization that's going a different direction?
100%.
So, in those initial intake calls, we're definitely going to focus on what have you done. But the bigger part of the conversation for us is, what are you looking to do next? Sometimes someone's resume says, hey, I've done A and I'm looking to do B. Okay, cool. Well, we can help you out in that. Too many times we assume that if you've done A, you're going to want to continue to do A. And that's just not the case for at least 50% of job seekers.
I think that's why y'all are so successful, right? Just to call it what it is. And the reason we still work with y'all as our primary recruiting partner is that you do focus on where candidates want to go. And you're not going to bring someone to us that's been an engineer for 10 years, but now they want to be a machine learning person. Like that, you could easily hand me a resume of a 10-year XYZ developer, and I'm going to be like, oh, sure, I'll talk to that person. I mean, they seem to have a lot of experience, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, no, this guy doesn't want to do that anymore. They want to move into a different world, do a different thing. And focusing on the candidate, which is my next point here, is the most important part of your interviewing process. A lot of interviewing processes are built to be weed outs. They're built to be things that get rid of folks. They're designed to be biased towards selecting people out. That is a huge mistake in my sense. And the next question, how can we tailor our interview processes to be more human-centric and kind to people? Going back to my sort of Google story, I don't think that human was trying to be unkind to me, but it felt like they were, right? They were criticizing me for a simple mistake that if I had made on the ground would have been fixed in like 0.2 seconds by a little red squiggle line on an IDE somewhere, or the newer IDEs will just do it for you and add the semicolon and you're done, right? So that put a really bad taste in my mouth with working with this individual. It's like, I don't want to work with someone who's that nitpicky. That adds no value. Now, if you're telling me my variable names are bad, or you can improve in this way and that way and the other, that's great. I love that. You have to show candidates how your company provides feedback in the trenches. This is something we don't do because the interview process is so divergent to how the work is done in many companies. And I think that's a massive mistake. What do you think, Bo?
No, I would agree with that. And I think that's why you guys are successful in your paired programming technical exercise. It's not about the syntax. You leave it open. I think we're up to 5 or 6 different languages that someone can take the test in. And even if someone said, hey, I want to do it in one outside of those 5 or 6, you guys would accommodate them. And it's not necessarily about, what are your specific skills? It's let's approach this problem together, because that's what you guys do in, actual consulting. And I think you guys have created a mini consulting experiment that takes people into almost a real working situation. And there are going to be those things that make them think on the fly. There is going to be, are you taking constructive criticism? Sometimes in consulting, you've got to just listen to the client, even though you know that they aren't going the right way. And you guys create that in your 1-hour technical assessment. And it's really hard to do, but I commend you guys for doing that.
For sure. I think being a real person is important too. During the interview process, the more you remove yourself from that person, the less real answers you're going to get from them. Now, imagine you've gone through that exercise and now you've hired this person and now they get to know the real you, and you were 180 degrees different from the you that was presented during the interview. You have in effect lied to that candidate, and maybe it's okay. And maybe that 180 degree turn isn't a bad thing. Maybe it's for the better, or maybe it's a good thing. I don't know. But I always, I have those conversations you mentioned earlier, where at the end of the interview process, I always jump on a phone call with this person. Every person we've hired, I have had a real conversation with them when they come in. I give them a chance to ask me any questions about the business. I'm like, you can ask me anything you want. Ask me what my favorite color is if you want. And we talk about things like the difference between working in a product organization versus working in a consulting organization, because a lot of the people that we hire come from product. Consulting is a fantastic place to sharpen your skills to a razor's edge, because we have to deal with so many different things. And we have to deal with so many different problems, both at the organizational level, the software development lifecycle level, and into the software engineering world, where we're solving hard problems using code. So that full experience is much more, it's different. And I would claim it is a little bit more difficult than coming into work every day, punching your clock and doing what the Scrum Master tells you in a product org. Again, I don't mean to offend anybody with that, but it is a very, very different world. It requires a very different set of skills. So there's always that real conversation that I have with people when they join us of, are you sure you can handle this? Because it's different. And not a lot of people like different. Sometimes that scares them.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you're only selling a candidate on your organization throughout the interview process, you're not doing them service, right? No matter where you go and work, you get paid to do things that you want to do for free on the weekend. And you're getting paid to do that because there's going to be some headaches. It's not all rosy. And so, like, if you sell your whole organization, you never say, hey, here's the challenges we're facing, or here's where it gets hard, or here's where we're going to need someone to really, buckle down and get this work done, then they're going to come in and think, they're hugging puppies and bunnies all day at work and getting paid for it, right?
Yeah.
And that's not the case. You get paid to do things that you want to do for free on the weekend because it's hard. And so, yes, you want to sell your organization, but yes, you've got to address where hey, this might be tough.
Right.
And I think if you do that, it kind of comes back to setting appropriate expectations.
Mm-hmm.
You set those appropriate expectations of here's where it's going to be hard, then both parties are going into this agreement to work together eyes wide open.
Right.
And I think you'll just have so much better success as opposed to, the person that, you sold to 4 weeks in, they're like, hey, this isn't what I signed up for. And they're already looking for a new job. And
Yep.
that's not a good situation for them, because they're going to be a job hopper, or for you, because now you got to go spend a bunch of time, back out in the interview process.
Right. And I think a lot of developers, they'll hit that sunk cost fallacy where they're like, hey, I mean, this is not what I expected it to be, but it's a paycheck for now. And I just moved jobs and I don't want to move again. And they will be miserable. And you will have a miserable human being on your teams, and miserable people on your teams do not produce good work. They produce good enough work, right? I'm going to do what I can to get my 40 in, and I'm going to leave. And if you call me and you have a problem, I'm not going to answer, because it does. I thought I was bait and switched, right, by what you told me versus what I got. So sort of transparency is one of our core values as a company. And that's why all of my interview processes are designed to help folks understand that we are a transparent company. I've had people ask me what our revenue is in our in-step interview, and I tell them, because I'm like, sure. I mean, if you want to come work for me, you need to know everything about the company. And if you don't know everything about the company, you can't make an informed decision, because it was a legitimate concern for some people to join us early on. It's like, can you pay for my benefits?
Yeah.
Do you have enough money, or are you being a poor steward of your funds? Do you know what happens if you run out of work in 6 months? Are you going to be able to continue to employ me, or am I going to be out on the street with nothing to show for it? So that's not a problem for giant companies, and they sort of take that for granted, I think, and sometimes build this bubble-based interview that doesn't actually show them what it means to work for the company. And I also will say, if you're afraid to show your candidate what it's actually like to work for your company, maybe you have some organizational problems you should be solving.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right. If you're hiding behind the curtain and how the sausage is made, right?
Right. And I mean, if your company is like, we do 50 hours a week and we're all go hards, that's fine. Show people that there are people out there that are okay with that.
And that'll attract the right people.
They will.
And if you're not that, and I think if you just show yourself more, it'll attract the right kind of people.
Correct. The more transparent you are, the more you'll find folks that are interested in working with you. Because I'm sure you've pitched us to some candidates and they're like, no thanks, not interested. And that's fine. That's cool with us, because I want people to get the best gig they can that makes them happy, improves their career, and helps them propel themselves forward in life. Because you never know, you may encounter that person again later on in your travels. So it's very important to keep all bridges open and all doorways open. So
absolutely.
Cool. Well, thanks, Phil. This has been awesome. Hopefully folks have learned a few things about hiring engineers. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments and we will happily answer. If you have a specific question or a specific story about your interview process, I'd love to hear more about it. To wrap it up, the focus here has been to make your recruiting process human-centric, right? Your recruiting process should focus on the people that you're trying to solve for, not the skills you're trying to attain. Because people have skills and they can be grown to various places if you spend enough time with them. You want to test for problem-solving capabilities and not aptitude with specific frameworks, unless you're a very specific framework type of company. Maybe you only write code in C for whatever reason, and you need those types of folks, and that's fine. But it's more important to find folks that are willing to sit down, advocate for your company, advocate for good practices, and solve problems with you and with your team, as opposed to people that just show up to work and write some code and then go home every day. Remember, fit is not a binary operation. It's a continuum, in my opinion. Candidates can be a fit on many factors, and you have to have some baseline ideas that you're going to fight over, where it's, if you don't have X and Y, there's no chance you're going to work here. But you need to look for potential energy in these hires, as opposed to focusing on what they know now. And you, especially in our junior engineers, you want to hire for potential energy and high potential energy. And then in our seniors, look for wisdom, right? Well, not intelligence. Wisdom is different than intelligence. Wisdom is the application of intelligence, I think. And you need to find people that are wise and have the ability to make good decisions and to drive and lead others in your organization to a place that everybody's happy. So thanks for watching. We appreciate everybody, and we'll see you guys next time.